Not talking about therapy or venting to a friend. I mean the feelings that sit in your chest or gut. Tension, stress, grief, anger, and don't go away just because you talk about them or think positively. Do you notice how often you're in your head, replaying events, avoiding things, or distracting yourself? Have you ever tried actually feeling those emotions, letting them move through your body instead of bottling them up or numbing them? I've been exploring ways of working through those feelings physically, not mentally, and it's been powerful. Have you ever done any kind of work that helped you release old emotional weight? Do you believe that kind of somatic release is real? Story 1. Do you think most men carry unresolved emotional weight in their bodies? Every man I have ever known has borne some kind of emotional trauma or conflict. I have plenty from my less than ideal childhood. Those men I mentioned never spoke about their issues. Men seldom do because society does not respect them or offer a sympathetic ear. I cannot say I have a specific strategy to combat such trauma and unresolved emotional conflict, but being aware of it is half the battle. Any practical advice I may offer mostly involves engaging in hobbies meant to de-stress and recharge your energy. One way I do that is by hiking my local mountains. Life seems small and insignificant when you are 2,000 feet above sea level, and the ambience gives you many reasons to be appreciative and grateful for life. Story 2. Accept the things you cannot change and spend your energy looking forward, not back. Sometimes you can do everything right and still fail. Learning to deal with that is a valuable skill, but nothing worth having comes easy. Story 3. Everyone holds on to some hurt in their life. Life can be difficult for everyone in some way. Some have it worse than others, but my point still stands. Is how an individual man or woman deals with that trauma and what they do with it to grow from it. I seek therapy and confide in my loved ones, or I let hobbies put me in a better place. I don't want to dwell on my past hurt and let it hurt me more than it already has. Story 4. In my opinion, men as a whole have lost the emotional regulation skills that define the gender for millennia. I personally do not believe in the theory of pent-up male emotions. I think men just do not have the skills to deal with their emotions anymore, mostly because the last 3 decades have pushed society to demonize those qualities. That is just my personal opinion. I have been to war. I have been a first responder and seen extreme carnage, death, and disturbing acts most humans can only imagine. I have had to watch a girl I love die at a young age. Those experiences have deeply affected me. But I have never felt that being stoic was the same as just bottling those emotions up. Stoicism personally saved my life, and I think it is one of the best skills for most men to master. Story 5. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure none of my family actually likes me besides my dad. I've never really been included much while growing up. I've missed a lot of trips and had to stay home alone to either watch the dogs or do something else. Unfortunately, that has just turned into me not feeling connected with any of my family except for some connection with my dad. He wasn't very active in my life either, but that was more because he had to work really hard. I've always just felt like a lesser family member, and now with my sister getting married and them treating my new brother-in-law like the son they always wanted, it just kind of hurts. I have nothing against him, he's a really cool guy, but I still can't help but crave belonging. This is something I have never talked to anyone about. I don't mind posting it on Reddit because whatever, I probably just sound like I'm complaining, but I don't think I could ever face anyone in person and tell them. Story 6. Some thoughts on past experiences, things I have said or could have said or should have said, resurface periodically. I first came to understand them as shower thoughts, but they happen at all times of the day and night. They can fester if you ruminate on them for too long. Many come and go as the years have passed. I am only 35 years old. The things I used to sit and think about from middle school and high school are all resolved now. They do not come back as easily and can be pushed away for happier or more present thoughts. Having a loving partner for almost 20 years has helped me share what I feel I can share. I have felt some of the feelings that I cannot share enough to feel like they no longer burden me. Some things I may never share. They weigh me down from time to time, but I think there will always be experiences, thoughts, and feelings that come and go like this, resting in corners of my subconscious, biding their time. Knowing when they are affecting me enough that they start to affect my relationships and my life is when I try to address them the most. Otherwise, I deal with what I can day by day. The most important thing I ever learned, which I remember being on the door to my 6th and 8th grade math classes from the same teacher, is, if you do not like something, change it. If you cannot change it, change how you feel about it. Nachbeben by Alligator is a good song that came out a few years ago that really resonated with me. It is about taking time to process what is happening and how you feel about it. I have friends I play hobbies with. Focusing on them makes the past seem close, longtime friends, but also good, not pressing or weighing me down. My wife and I make sure to go on dates at least a couple of times a month to spend time away from the pressures of our lives. I have not been to therapy since I was 12 and should go again. I think it is helpful if you can afford it and find the right person. Story 7. I think many people hold tension without noticing. Moving, breathing, or simply sitting with it can help much more than overthinking. Story 8. Honestly, as a single father of 2 boys, there is a heavy feeling all the time, but time heals. What I did was spend most of my time with my boys. I focused more on my job, and during spare time, I played online with my friends. My father always told me that as men, we cannot be discouraged in life and must keep fighting. Story 9. I never think one single solution solves those problems. You need to talk to someone because only through talking to someone who asks the right questions can you truly and more easily explore your emotions. Finding an outlet for those emotions, such as physical exercise, sports, or a medium like art or writing, can help. Practices like mindfulness through meditation are also beneficial. A combination of multiple approaches can be effective. Men are not taught to process their emotions, and if you are older, it is harder to acquire this skill after many years. They say that after the late 20s, it is harder to change your brain wiring. Story 10. Therapy helped me understand why I was feeling the way I was and ultimately reprogrammed my brain to feel happier. Story 11. Going outdoors is usually when I do most of my reflection and processing. It does no good to keep it suppressed. Going out in nature is a really good way for me to put things in perspective, to figure out what things matter and how much. Story 12. I often pay attention to how an emotion feels in my body. Is it heavy or light? Where do I feel it? This does not make the feeling go away, but it helps me to dissociate a bit from it and become more comfortable with the feeling. Ultimately, we have feelings for a reason, and it is okay to have them. I have just become more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Story 13. I posted the other day, but I had been holding on to emotions since my uncle passed away. I was going through something stressful and he kept coming to mind. I realized that even though I had thought about him and my feelings, I never actually processed them. When I got home, I sat down at the table and spoke all my thoughts and feelings out loud. Something about actually putting thoughts and emotions into words is cathartic. The stressful feeling has mostly passed, and when I think of my uncle, I no longer feel those added stressful thoughts and emotions. While I personally did not need therapy, it may be helpful for others. It really depends on what someone is grappling with. Story 14. I have, and there are some feelings you cannot sense through it. It is not necessarily repression either. There are things that you cannot solve, and you either have to let them go or find a way to deal with them. Yes, I think most things can be dealt with in a healthy way, but there are many that cannot. Story 15. I think to a certain extent this is true. Trauma can certainly be stored in different parts of the body from my experience. Somatic body experiencing is proving to be very helpful for me in this regard. However, my background is complex, and I suppressed many strong emotions as a child because I had to at the time. So perhaps it is not a universal truth. I guess it depends on whether you feel certain emotions have not been felt and need to be released. Everyone is different. Story 16. I find writing has been cathartic. If it is the one who got away, unresolved issues, I just stopped fighting it and used the love as motivation. Story 17. Yes, it is definitely real. Here is a simple guide for accessing it and healing for anyone interested. Also, make no mistake, women suppress emotions just as much as men. Just because their decisions are driven by emotions does not mean they are more in touch with their emotions or have a healthier relationship with them. In fact, most women carry around enormous amounts of emotional baggage, especially as they get older, because there is always a new person to distract them and help them get over a previous relationship. Talking about your emotions does not actually do anything. It lets enough steam out of the tea kettle to stop it from whistling, but it does not deal with the underlying energy. You have to feel it to heal it. Story 18, just forget about them. If they are past, they should stay in the past. The present is where you are making your future. Story 19, I'm reading Healing Trauma, and much of what it discusses resonates with many things that hinder me. I'm trying to feel them, but it is very difficult not to go overboard. At least I have a better understanding of those bodily sensations. When faced with situations that paralyze me and focusing on the sensations, I remember things that I had already forgotten. Story 20. Sure, it can definitely be real. The standard way of doing things is to symbolize experiences into language to the best of our ability. This brings order to our experiences. It is the things we do not or cannot translate into words that can turn nasty and affect your mental health. Physical processing can be viewed as a more temporary state of relief and regulation, whereas language is what actually gives a place to experiences in a more permanent way. As such, it is not a bad strategy by any means, as it has more benefits than regulation alone. However, the key is that without language, it likely would not work long-term. That is not an issue for most people. We are storytelling creatures by nature. To be precise, most of us are. Those who are not carry a risk of being overwhelmed by experience due to a lack of ability to regulate and place experiences. Story 21. I don't understand what you meant. How exactly do you relieve emotional baggage through something physical? Story 22. Personally, exercise is very important, but also movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy helped a lot. It is exhausting and draining, but afterwards you feel a serious weight lifted. I am sure it is different for everyone, but maybe it will help depending on what is going on with you. Story 23. With the dealing part, I think it depends. For me, talking about it repeatedly and sharing it with someone who listens without any judgment works best. In my social circle, I don't have anyone with whom I feel comfortable sharing my thoughts because I fear judgment. I don't have that bond with my siblings either. Earlier, my coping mechanism used to be writing everything down and dumping my thoughts, but they used to come back. Then I used to meet therapists, but that felt overwhelming and I felt like a patient, to be honest. About 3 weeks ago, I met someone through Zaya, and it was surprising. I never thought there is something like Zaya where one can find friends based on journeys and emotional compatibility. I had a few conversations with them and spoke about the same thing repeatedly, but I feel a bit unburdened now. Something on my chest feels lighter. After having these conversations, I realized one thing. Whatever we are going through feels like a mountain for us, but when we share it and when there is someone to listen and share their stories, the mountain melts. Story 24. One thing I have learned as I grew up is realizing how deep some generational sins and issues creep into our development from childhood, affecting the type of person you become. I have known many men with issues like drug or alcohol abuse who never expected their problems to emerge from the darkness where they hid and suppressed their childhood traumas. I have met men who experienced horrible events later in life and then realized how certain childhood traumas jump-started their struggles with vices. Others are too passive, shy, non-confrontational, or conforming because of a difficult upbringing or background. You can say this about anyone, but it is especially hard for men to accept when everyone is telling you to get over it and be a man. You keep working while slowly digging yourself deeper into a hole with harmful coping mechanisms until you lose sight of yourself completely and become one of those defeated homeless men seen on the streets on the way to work or church. The best advice I could give to future generations of men: brothers, work through your childhood traumas and issues. Being like Batman sounds great, but being the Dark Knight is an incredibly lonely experience, with immense weight, responsibility, constant existential dread, and unresolved childhood wounds. You do not have to carry that emotional baggage for the rest of your life. Focus on it, find ways to heal, and seek closure unless you want those issues to invade every aspect of your life until you lose everything. Story 25. Men do not process their emotions by feeling through it. We are not women. Solutions that may work for women mostly do not work for men. Stop trying to feminize us. It does not work. It creates dysfunctional men who cannot function effectively in society and get crushed by it. Read about Nora Vincent, who pretended to be a man to write a book. The plan was to be undercover for a year, but just a few months in, she suffered a mental breakdown, depression, checked herself into a mental health facility, and unfortunately committed suicide. More research recently shows that feminine methods of solving issues are actually harming men. Many types and approaches to therapy for men and boys today will be seen retrospectively in the future as savage brutality, like lobotomy and electroshock therapy are seen today. Story 26. I think that's pretty universal because, despite how our society likes to talk about them, our mind and body are the same thing. You cannot separate them. What happens to one happens to the rest. B. I do not know what you mean by not therapy, when somatic work is an entire discipline in therapy. That feeling that does not just go away. Therapy helps you explore and untangle it. Sometimes it helps the feeling go away. Sometimes it just makes it easier to live with. C. Not to backseat diagnose, but maybe you should talk to a therapist or doctor about anxiety. Happy, healthy brains do not tend to ruminate, but a depressed or anxious brain certainly will. Story 27. I think most men over a certain age do. I'm 29 and was having a difficult time a few years ago, so I went to weekly therapy for a couple of months and it has changed my life for the better. Now I look at my dad and my father-in-law, and I can see that they haven't processed many of the experiences they have had in their lives. Both have lost family members, witnessed death, and faced health challenges. They would benefit greatly from sitting down with a therapist and expressing their feelings, but they prefer to keep moving through each day carrying all that emotional baggage. Story 28. I have experienced some of this in my life, but did not really realize it until I was about 30 years old. Doing dialectical behavior therapy work has helped a lot. Story 29. I think everyone does to some extent. Therapy and doing physical activities outdoors have helped me a lot. Story 30. There is no single solution to the issues on your mind. However, managing not to focus on them or dwell on them is a solution. This might involve putting them behind you without feeling or processing them. Story 31. You mean being alive? Also, the title suggests another option. Maybe we carry our emotional weight in a crossbody bag or a wheelbarrow. Story 32. At any moment, I try to look the world in the eye, that is, accepting difficulties and everything exactly as it is. It is challenging, but it helps me. Story 33. I have no idea what resolving emotions even means in any positive sense. As much as I can see, it is scratching that wound over and over, convincing yourself and others how miserable you are. This is how they describe the preferred female way, and if I witnessed it, it is not working. This is not something that brings you closer to fixing your life or accepting the things that cannot be fixed. Story 34. It remains in our bodies because we are not allowed to deal with it. If we do, we are told we are too angry or wrong. Or worse, we are told it is not our place to say anything. When people want to help us, it is only to regulate our emotions and silence us so we are not seen as a burden or dangerous. The moment we are seen as an inconvenience and people disconnect. So you learn quickly, be quiet and just endure it. Story 35, it depends on the person, I guess. If you can, then really congratulations. However, I think some people and some of the experiences they have been through truly never go away. Story 36, emotions are energy, and energy can be resourceful when used appropriately. My anger can help me push harder in the gym. My sadness allows me to empathize and emotionally connect better with other people. My happiness puts me in a good mood that can help spread joy to others. Story 37. Just stomp it deep down. It bubbles up occasionally, but for the most part, I have been indifferent. Hung up on the same girl 8 months after she stopped responding, but outside of that, I usually do not experience strong emotions anymore. Story 38. My sadness and isolation as a child morphed into unfeeling wrath and alternating hot and cold anger. Cannot cry anymore. Not really. My brain quickly converts sadness into either anger or a strange emotion that feels like the desire to build a fortress that can keep out anything and everything. It also tries to convert loneliness into a desire to explore, but much of it manifests as a desire to connect with others, which is fundamentally opposite to the rest of the way I think and live my life. Story 39. Many people handle it privately or at least express their frustration in a space where a verbal or physical reaction is safe or far enough away to prevent others from getting involved. I believe everyone can look back at a difficult situation and feel angry about it, even if they have moved on. Story 40. Yes, I have studied and attained non-medical certifications as a meditation teacher, emotional freedom technique/tapping master practitioner, cognitive behavior therapy practitioner, and am working on my certification as a dialectical behavior therapy practitioner. Many are unaware that we all have brain cells in our hearts as well as in our gut. If you have suppressed anger, anxiety, phobias, and particularly post-traumatic stress disorder, they require a physical component to the treatment to be effective. It is stored in your body as well as the brain and mind. I speak from experience and have also experienced positive results as a confirmed skeptic. Also, the subconscious mind is much more powerful in determining who we are than any conscious intention. Story 41. One of the best methods to manage the energy in the body is for men to lift weights. Talking therapy has its place, but lifting weights does much more. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.